Good day and welcome to this edition of Press Hour. We want to extend our gratitude to Muki Edwin Kenzeka for sitting in for us last weekend. The news about the appointment of the head coach of the Indomitable Lions came in very late for most of the papers to comment on this week because it was just last Saturday. We'll be touching on it because we are the electronic media, and so we can catch up with some of part of the electronic media, so we can catch up with some of those breaking news items. We'll also touch on decentralization, but focus on the venture of some religious leaders led by the cardinal in Cameroon, Cardinal Christian Toomey, who have decided to convene an all Anglophone General Conference at the end of this month, but he's receiving a lot of pebbles. So will the cardinal be able to stand up to the challenge? That's the question we'll be asking in the course of this program, and I have quite a good number of gentlemen to handle the subject for us this afternoon. Let's begin with the first part, and we'll have Geoff Ngwa.
It's always a pleasure.
And
good afternoon, Joe.
Gideon Tazo.
A pleasure to be on the show again.
We have Professor Willibrod Nzengwa, who sometime was at the level of Fekafoot, one of many people would not know you in that capacity as one of the technical advisors or in a committee somewhere in Fekafoot.
Well, no.
And I hear you played football before.
Oh, yes, I did. I did even competitive football. I played for Fogap in Yaoundé.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yes, at least I did play good football.
Okay. Hopefully. And it's Gideon Tazo, not Gideon Tazo, Gideon Tewilambif. It's because I called Gideon that.
You see, you get mixed up. So, so it's always better to call my media name, which is Tewilambif.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's set the ball rolling with what the papers were feeding on this week. Our press review.
The proposed Anglophone General Conference convened for the 29th and 30th of August 2018 in Buea by some religious clerics as a way to find solutions to the socio-political upheavals in the northwest and southwest regions is the main story on almost all newspapers in Cameroon this week. Cameroon Tribune's Monday edition presents the stance of government through her spokesperson Issa Chiroma Bakari. The communication boss is quoted as saying that the state welcomes moves to solve the crisis, but such should be lawful and not worse than the crisis itself. But the Guardian Post reads fear in government and asserts why government is scared of the convened conference. The paper says despite government's initial endorsement of the meeting, regime apologists are now drumming a campaign against the All-Anglophone Conference. The Horizon newspaper rather publishes the views of Sam Ikontang Elat, chair of the All-Anglophone Conference 1 and 2, who thinks government is against Anglophone unity. This at the time the Post newspaper quotes Mayor Patrick Ikema as saying no All-Anglophone Conference 3 in Buea, even if BIA authorizes it. And the Guardian Post reports that Cardinal Toomey has warned critics of the conference that no amount of intimidation will scare him, while the Horizon sees Mayor Okema Patrick as going xenophobic and calling an anti-Northwest march. The Star rolls its readers to the different attacks by gunmen on CDC biggest banana estate in Tico, after many others have suffered the same fate. Then politics takes its place, with Cameroon Tribune reporting on the strategies devised by different political parties to woo diaspora votes as Elecam intensifies preparations with the distribution of voter cards. The interest of the Post newspaper is rather on how CPDM is making gains from gullible opposition politicians, but goes further to announce that the SDF wants polling stations at the presidency, barracks, palaces withdrawn. All these at a time. The Voice questions BIA to launch campaigns in Bamenda. It says hints from trusted sources hold that the candidate of the ruling party is planning to make an exception by launching campaigns in Bamenda. The Lone English Daily clips in to report that the race for Unity Palace has got Joshua Osi, SDF candidate, battling dual nationality accusation, but the Post newspaper quotes Osi saying that because his mother is from Swiss, it doesn't make him a Swiss national. And now security in the northwest and southwest, as reported by different newspapers, with Cameroon Tribune describing the presence of defense forces in the regions as indispensable. Yet the Horizon newspaper questions the professionalism of these forces, noting that government has stepped in to check the military excesses, with defaulting soldiers already in custody. The same idea carried on the post-weekender, with narration on eyewitnesses on how the military massacred youths in Boya. The Green Reporter cries the fate of flood victims in Limbe and Douala, while bringing to the fore the hazards of indiscriminate urination and defecation on the environment in Yaoundé. This at a time Cameroon Tribune is reporting on the acceleration of decentralization in Cameroon, with a presidential decree organizing the ministry in charge. But to the Guardian Post, the hopes for federalism are sinking as this decentralization process gets on full gear. We are in a press review on this human interest story on the Guardian Post newspaper, where an ENS graduate has denied to marry the same builder who sponsored her throughout university and ENS to become a fully trained teacher today. The case is being heard at the Ekunu Court in Yaoundé. Until we meet again, have an hour with the press.
Emanuela, stories like the one that has to do with the bricklayer and her fiancé will hardly stop appearing or coming on in the press. But that notwithstanding, let's go to what's hot. And it's the appointment of Sidov and Kluvet. I'm sure when you were a sports reporter, these guys were the inspirations of the time.
Yes,
and at
Joe,
long last,
you are right.
The Indomitable Lions have a coach.
Obviously, you and I were sports reporters, and you couldn't talk of football without talking about Sidov or Kluvet when it came to the Dutch national side. I think in terms of that view of the appointment, I would say it's spectacular. It's a star appointment. Maybe we'll be diving into whether they can succeed or not, and be looking at the other side of the appointment. But for the moment, I think they are spectacular appointments.
That's what is making Cameroonians very excited about the duo that will handle the Indomitable Lions, perhaps.
Well, I'm also
that they've been stars themselves, and so the task now is that of transforming that mentality of what they have in their legs, if I might put it that way, to the boys who will be playing on the field.
Yes, Joe, I must have to say that when I got rumors of that Sidov and Crtv had applied, I was very happy for two reasons. I said, these are guys who have played football at the highest level. And we have a problem of ego in our national football team. So that's to say, you tell a player, please, I want you to play here, don't do that. He does the opposite. And I believe these guys, with their profile, will be able to bring down that ego in players. And of course, we'll be able to give them instructions. So I feel that on that score, they're going to be
some discipline.
Some discipline.
Okay.
And again, by going for this duo, for the Dutch duo, I must have to say Cameroon has decided to opt for Dutch football. You know, the last time we had Dutch football here was Arihan, who came in 2009. And this time around, we're having a Dutch duo. This time around, which means that we've tried the German school of football, we've tried the French, we've tried the Belgian, and now we want to
the
go
Russian
Dutch.
with Napomnachi?
Yes, of course. So I think let's try the Dutch football school and see. These are guys who have, in fact, to me, technocrats of the latest generation. They left football not far off.
Now, they have to build from scratch because the former coach was just saying that he is making do with what he has in hand. And so it's a big challenge for them to spot the talents and build a squad from zero.
Yes, Joe, I think like Gideon was mentioning a while ago, these are players who have played top-flight soccer, and they know what it takes to win a trophy. And on that count, I would say they might have the means or the intelligence or the know-how to build a team, but the context, we know the context within which they are working.
And that's
we have had many a coach, good ones like bad ones, who have come to Cameroon and had it difficult in implementing what they have upstairs in terms of coaching ability, in terms of know-how. And I only hope that the fact that they have chosen players who worked in a very professional environment, who don't have the African mentality as such. These are blacks, but we know that they have Dutch blood flowing in them.
Okay. And
obviously they will have their modus vivendi when it comes to coaching. And if you don't give them that environment, I think it would take a lot from what they intend to implement.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned something there, and this has to do with the working environment. There's complexity in coaching in Africa. Unnecessary influences from match agents or football agents, player agents,
and influence out of
administration, and so on and so forth. How do they intend to get out of that? They didn't grow up with that. And if I'm sure somebody would have told them that this is where you're getting into. This is African football.
Yes, like when our experts in the domain were appreciating those newly appointed coaches, I was just trying to think, are they going to leave the local realities? I think not only interventions, interruptions, even from government officials. I think we are going to face the reality. It takes more than being a
They
good
will
coach.
have to face the reality.
Yeah. It takes more than good coaching to do it as far as Cameroon is concerned, with all of our influences. And I can say that...
Not only Cameroon, Africa.
Well, Africa. Well, I don't want to accept the African notion. I want to talk about Cameroon.
Okay, the one you know.
Yes, the one I know. Because you will realize that the first thing is Cameroonians hardly want a Cameroonian coach, no matter their expertise. We just saw the best team, to the best of my appreciation, from Africa in the current World Cup. I mean, the just ended World Cup, from Senegal, being a Senegalese. I think a national team should mean, to me, that it should be all the nationals from a particular country. You don't fight a battle,
including the
general,
coach.
Including the coach. You don't go
but
to
none of them has ever proven disloyal because it comes from outside.
Well, the point is that, like I was saying, we have the local realities. We wish them well, but we are just saying that I think it is high time the Africans go beyond that mentality of always thinking that it is only when a player has played for, competitive football elsewhere can he be good in Cameroon. We've had wonderful Cameroonians, like the Eto'os, the Mila Rogers, and all of those, who can as well be coaches.
They are not coaches. They haven't gone in for that. Okay. If Seedorf and Kluivert accepted to the offer, it means that they think they are up to the challenge, isn't it?
I really hope so. I really hope they know that there are a number of parameters that are not in their favor. You may have the best coaches, you may have the best skills, but you need time. Why is it that we're having the trainers now less than a year?
They were taking time to look for the best.
Well, you might end up having the best who will not be able to give in their best. This thing is scientific. You don't get up one morning and find let's say you are in primary 1 and you suddenly find yourself in primary 6. It takes time. It takes time to prepare anything. The best, they have said all that they can say, but the time factor too should be taken into consideration. That the trainer is being designated less than 1 year to a competition that we want to win on 2 fronts: winning in the organization and taking the trophy.
Okay, there is.
I just wanted to.
Yes, let me put the question the other way.
Right.
The local championship has just ended, and from every indication, Seedorf and Kluivert will have to work with those they see on the European scene, which makes the task a little bit more easier for them.
Yes, I think for a start, obviously they work with the players they know who already have a name. You see, I was one of those who clamored that when our national team actually won, the base, the crux of the team was home-based in the domestic league. Think of a period where 9 players from Canon of Yaoundé constituted the backbone of the national team. That's when we had a solid team. And once in a while, they called in professionals like Miller to come in and give a hand. I think the givens have changed, Joe, because not only do we have a dismal domestic league, but I think we've come to a point of rupture where the young generation doesn't take over from the players who bow out of the scene. If you look at it, you can count a few players who once in a while sprout from Asia, sprout from the English league, and then that's what has made our team.
Are you saying,
in recent years?
Yes. Is it a question of having a pedigree of talented youth, or it's a question of bringing them up to be competitive enough?
To plant a good garden, you need a good nursery.
Okay, well, let Tazo take that one.
I want to stop Geoff from being nostalgic. I want to say that gone are the days where we had local players making the cross of the national football team. Well, it was like that in those days, but these days the guys are on the international scene. Yeah, so I feel very much that it's now a mixture of international guys or guys of the local scene can do something. And I want to again disagree with the fact that he said that we have a dismal national championship. No. This year there has been a marked improvement. I hope you know that there is a young man who is a Chadian, Monjimanti, who is now playing for Porto. That is, I think, in as many as 5 years or 7 years in Cameroon, no player has left the elite football championship in Cameroon and plays direct elite football in Europe. That's another one. We have a guy called Ross Tambai, the best scorer of the championship, who scored 20 goals, who are signed in the Ittihad Tanger, that's Morocco, the Moroccan champion. So I think we don't have bad seats at home. I think it's a matter of trying to locate them. And I believe Kluvet, who was being included here, because you know that he was the sport director for PSG, for Paris Saint-Germain. He has an eye on such players, so he's going to do it. But now we are at recess. But the championship begins on the 12th of October, you know that. And I think they will have enough time. Enough time, even though TV was saying that 11 months. But I think we're no more there again. We now have a coach. How do we move forward? We have some players who have bi-nationality in Bayern Munich and other teams in Europe. I think that'll be the work of these guys to bring them now and build a good team, a strong team.
Okay.
I think just to add, Joe, I think when it comes to that, many players have to be convinced. Many players have to be convinced because of recent. There have been a lot of defections from the national side. They have refused to play. Maybe the seed of Kluvet element is going to have an impact on some of those players.
I think so.
If
because
not...
if a Seedorf can invite you to come and play in his team, or a Kluvet, you know that he, somebody of that caliber, has been able to detect something very peculiar in you.
Particularly when it comes to his international career, it was a wonderful
Of course,
player.
that's what I'm talking about.
When it comes to coaching, those are, I must mention, those are two players who have not had any previous experience, coaching experience in terms of national side.
Yes, and
I want to
on
say,
the African continent,
I was one of the few who accepted that Hugo Bros should be given a chance.
Okay, and have you accepted that these other ones should be given a chance?
They should be given their chance.
Who are you? They would say you're not
like
amongst them.
Like a Cameroonian, like a sports observer. I always want to give a chance to a coach to show what he's capable of.
Quarterfinals of the World Cup. We had Nepomniachtchi took Cameroon to the quarterfinal of the World Cup. They never really had any experience. I think let's give these guys a chance. At 42 years, they want to prove their worth. They want to make an impact.
They want to start somewhere.
Yeah, they have to start something. But I want to caution Cameroonians. They should not be in a hurry, as Tiwilami was saying. It takes time. The French have just won, the German coach won the World Cup in 2014. He started in 2002. That was in Korea, Japan. And so he won the World Cup in 2014. So we should give them time. In fact, these guys have a knack of detecting talent. They are from the Dutch Academy, what you call Ajax Academy. And I think they have that eye. Let's give them a chance.
Okay.
Let's provide for them.
Joe, I think one thing, there should be the enabling environment. Yeah, the environment should be very enabling so as to build some confidence among
Give them the
coaches,
opportunity to exercise their functions.
Give the players the opportunities to build trust in those who are supposed to be coaching them. When it comes to issues of match bonuses, it shouldn't be the usual issue of postponement. I mean, the players should be given.
No, you just said it all.
Yes.
The enabling environment.
Joe, I just want to say here that Cameroon has been shouting to whoever wants to listen that they are the land of talent. And I tell myself that talent alone is like crude oil. It has to be refined for it to be exploited, for it to be used.
Useful. Okay.
So when we keep on claiming our talent, and again, what is this country where you have talented footballers and not talented trainers, football trainers?
Okay.
I find it difficult to reconcile this in the name of our specificities. It's no excuse.
No, we have had nationals before, and this time they are turning to...
The point is that we should have nationals.
Continuously.
We should make it clear.
Okay.
How can we have such good
that's your
footballers
opinion,
and we don't have good football trainers?
That's your opinion, and I hope it counts also.
It's a paradox to me.
Those who
when we keep on shouting, and I know that in 1 year...
Can we face out?
These two sports guys here,
we'll begin saying a different story.
They will begin saying a different story. Just surprises for the results. They are now saying that they are the best. They are the best.
No, that's not what we said.
I think they come from the best football academy.
Please,
they should be given an enabling environment.
But I know.
I like us to face out, please.
England had coaches, Englishmen, they're not going nowhere.
I hope we should have...
Sven-Göran Eriksson came in 2002 into the quarterfinal, 2006 to the quarterfinal. So it's not necessarily the home base that must give you...
And then when it comes...
Please,
we know the reality of the ground. When it comes to home-based coaches, they will put a cousin, you will call the coach and propose your cousin who does not know how to kick the ball.
Decentralization. The President of the Republic signed a decree recently, last week, reorganizing the Ministry of Decentralization. Is that the magic key that should turn things moving?
It can't be the magic one. Decentralization is not decreed. It is a process that should be implemented diligently. A number of things that have to be done, not only being done, but being done when they are supposed to be done. I want to say that had it been the decentralization as enshrined in the 1996 Constitution, and I'm just belaboring the point here, was implemented at the pace, 1996, and we're in 2019. 23 years after.
2018.
2018, 22 years after. Had it been this ministry was even created
at the time,
it would have done.
But much has been achieved in terms of decentralization already.
Much more could have been achieved. You would agree with me that when you wait for your patient to get into a coma before you start looking for treatment, you need a shock therapy.
Okay, and that shock therapy should be maybe that reorganization of that, what used to be under the Ministry of Territorial Administration, now a ministry on its own, which means that that could be the shock therapy you're talking about.
I beg to differ with you.
Okay.
It is not the shock therapy.
It's an opinion, but
it's doing
where do we move faster?
Yes.
Where do we put our finger to move faster in terms of decentralization?
Well, I think that every issue, we call it federation or federalism. All our forms of decentralization. The problem in Cameroon is not those decrees, the applicability. How are they applied in the field? You know, the problem with this decentralization is that there is no clear-cut distinction between the political decentralization and the administrative decentralization. It still gives more powers. I mean, decentralization in Cameroon is much more of administrative than political decentralization. And by administrative decentralization, it simply means that the head of state has his representatives all over in all the divisions. That is administrative. It means that even at the very local level, those who have political power, that is with political election like the mayors and so on, still depend on administrators.
And
so
that's why
there's always a bone of
the decree came to fix some of those I would call it abnormalities that were existing.
I think not giving, still giving the governors powers over the areas where they govern, which is the DUs still have the authorities over the councils.
Not as much as in the past.
No. Yeah, what we are saying,
the SGS used to be the guardians or titular officials.
Joe, don't get me wrong. Any decision which is taken to move decentralization forward is wonderful. But what we are saying concretely is that it is so snail-paced to an extent that it always favors one part, that is the administrators. And that is why we are saying that we would have preferred if a clear-cut decree is made giving powers to the elected, so giving more powers to political decentralization. All those who are elected democratically should be given powers more than those who are appointed. In this light, people are going to have a feel of what decentralization is in all the nooks and crannies of Cameroon.
Okay. We will take this as an issue.
It couldn't have been otherwise, given that there was a change in the structure of the government. In the past, the Ministry of Territorial Administration and Decentralization was overseeing the process. Now, that has simply fundamentally been split. And now, instead of the ASIOs, the same ASIOs will still be taking care of council sessions. But now, instead of reporting to the Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, they'll be reporting to the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development. That is the fundamentality. So it is still coming back to centralization or administrative. I think what people
don't you see that as being accountable to hierarchy?
It has been that way.
What people want is to have
a situation where you don't report at all?
No.
People want to be able to decide that. Do you think it is normal
the
for
people at the local, at the basis should be able to elect those who are accountable
to them.
In a space of 5 years, if they cannot
within the present dispensation, you see local authorities respecting the electorate?
Present dispensation, we are talking about Cameroon. I think so. It's not the Northwest and Southwest regions. I don't know what we are talking about.
No, I'm not talking about the
Northwest. Now, what we are saying is that
about the entire country.
If all the mayors are elected and they are accountable to those who elected them, it means that if they do not deliver the goods, the electorate have the right to vote them out. Therefore, they are going to be accountable to the people and not writing reports doctored reports. Of course, we do understand that most of these reports are always doctored to favor them, to the hierarchy.
Joe, let me just give this a quick, share this conversation I had with a mayor who told me that the two most powerful people in this council are the Secretary General and the Treasurer, and that he will give an instruction. He will even ask that the treasurer should prepare the payment orders for workers, and he will take all his time.
But the mayor is the vote holder.
No, not at all. And then
that case is peculiar because the mayor is the vote holder, is the one who signs and who authorizes expenditures.
And this secretary and this treasurer will say, "Come on, I'm appointed by two ministers. It takes the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Territorial Administration for me to be where I am, and another minister. You are just elected."
And these people more often than not hold these councils.
Yes, and that is why for a council to buy a pen, it needs to raise a payment order, which the ASIO will approve before they can buy.
No, that is done in the budgetary session, of course.
So
that's done in the budgetary session. What are you talking about?
I'm simply saying that we should be sincere and move on with decentralized. Even if it is administrative decentralization as it is, it should be done in such a way as to benefit the local population.
It looks like it's a topical issue. We will get that as a topic on its own. Let's move on to our focus today, and it has to do with the Anglophone General Conference. We have the speaker from Sisako Tamko.
Four Of the 7 Fako chiefs that were kidnapped and released, called on Prime Minister Yang to recount the ordeal they face in captivity. In the presence of the minister in charge of territorial administration, it was a fervent plea for the powers that be to ensure the safety and proper security of the already traumatized and vulnerable populations. They were led to the Star Building by the Mayor of Buea, Ikema Patrick.
The first role of a mayor is that of social peace within your municipality, and that's exactly what I've been doing. When it all started with the school non-resumption of schools, and
the kidnappings of the traditional authorities is an act of sacrilege in the Bakori tradition. In a declaration issued on July 28, the chiefs vehemently condemned the series of kidnappings and said no to further threats, abductions, killings, extortion, and terrorism.
If you look at the number of young people who are hiding in the forest as maquisards, it's very insignificant as opposed to the population of the municipality. And so if our people beat out fear, I think we can all stand upright and of course push that cankerworm within our municipality.
The pride and splendor of custodians of tradition are derived from their people, and no one has the right to infringe on what tradition holds.
Okay, I want to welcome Prince Ekoso and Professor Elvis Ngole. Our 2 friends, Jov and Gideon, have left us. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I'd like you to take this question on the convened Anglophone General Conference. They call it the AGF, but others want to call it the AAC3. How would you judge the timing of this conference?
Well, Joe, thank you once again. I think that it is never too late to be able, because the reason why this conference has been called is to be able to solve the Anglophone problem. And the Anglophone problem has been a bone of contention in this country with a lot of killings for the past 2 years now. And we have made a lot of suggestions on how this problem can be solved. And someone who is prominent in this country is coming up with a suggestion and with a strategy. I think that it is necessary for us to be able to do what we have to do in order to at least make sure that the killings are abated, because one of the things which is very, very scary with regards to the current conflict in Cameroon at this point in time in the Anglophone zones is the massive killings of both civilians and the military. It is becoming something that you don't want to see, the ways that some of these persons are being killed. As I speak to you, in the Tiko constituency, Likomba in particular, citizens have left that town because they feel that in the days ahead, the massacre or the killings will be very, very dramatic, and so they have packed out of their houses, and some have come to Yaoundé, some have gone to Bafoussam, some have gone to Douala, some have gone to Nigeria. You see, so if this conference is coming to address the Anglophone problem, because the Anglophone problem is the heart of this conflict, and if this problem can be solved through this conference, which has been convened or is being called by Eminence Cardinal Tumi, then we can only give
other religious leaders.
Yes, and other religious leaders. We can only give him our support and encourage everyone to be able to have a lot of respect for that event which is coming.
Okay.
Because the event will actually draw us closer to dialoguing with the situation at hand.
Okay. Now, the argument with the content of the conveners, the content of what is supposed to be handled.
Well, Joe, what I would say on the subject of the Anglophone General Conference is that as an idea, as an initiative, in concept, it is good, because all of us are suffering from the same concerns, the same worries, and as Prince has just said, we can't continue to accept that our society should be characterized by wanton killings and kidnappings and populations being displaced, chiefs, traditional authorities being desecrated as far as their integrity and their authority and their personality are concerned. As a country, as a nation, we have to go forward. And all of us are concerned about moving forward. As a country, one people, one nation, united in its diversity, we have to go forward. And what we have lived through in the last almost 2 years is something we all have to condemn, which is that our society is being torn into pieces, and populations are being displaced here and there, internally displaced refugees. This cannot be accepted. Therefore, anyone who has an idea to contribute to normalcy and order, it's accepted. So it is in that light that I'm quite comfortable that the likes of Cardinal Atumi and the other clerics have made a proposal. But my concern about that proposal is that that proposal suffers from at least four problems. The first problem you've just mentioned yourself is the problem of timing. It's never too late to do something, but when you look at the time as it is now, the nation is in the middle of a presidential campaign, which officially is not yet begun, but we are in a pre-campaign mode. At the time when this conference is to take place, it will be almost at the time for school children to go back to school. I'm wondering whether that timing is the right timing. The other concern I have about the initiative is that somehow the initiative has not shown any sensitivity to the fact that the state of Cameroon is a state that is upright and is a state that is not failed. The state has been there, involved, dedicated, committed, and if there is an idea to contribute to a return to normalcy and order, that idea should not act as if the state has done nothing or the state is not there. That idea should not make the state look like the state has failed or that the state doesn't have anything.
You are navigating,
and that idea does not make the state to be equal to something.
To the table? Can you land on that point? Can you make it more explicit?
The point I'm trying to say here is that in terms of substance, we said content. If you notice, the initiative puts the burden on the state in the sense that the date is chosen, the agenda is chosen, the participants have been identified, even the place has been identified.
They said all Anglophones.
Yeah, they gave the definition of who has to participate. I mean, it's in the communique. And the state has to do the following things. It doesn't say what others have to do. So somehow the state is put before a fait accompli. Whereas the state, whether we like it or not, is the guarantor of the general interest. The state, as long as the state has not failed, the state is the pilot. And we cannot, in whatever we're trying to do, ignore the fact that as long as there is a legitimate legal state, that state has to do, has to be part of the solution.
The point, if I got Prince right, the point here is that the problem has been dragging on, and somebody takes an initiative.
Yes, that initiative somebody has taken does not put off what the state has been doing, because we know what the state has been doing.
Okay.
The state has been there. But the other point I wanted to make, which is important here, is that this initiative has chosen a location, which is Boya, the southwest region. In choosing that location, the initiative has not, I shouldn't say has not, I'm not sure if it has, but has not ensured that in Boya, in the southwest region, there are authorities that are both legitimate and legal, who had to have either been consulted, maybe they have, or had to be considered to be part of the process, because whether you like it or not, Boya is a place which is in mourning. Buea is a place which is going through lots of problems. Their traditional rulers have been desecrated. Some have been killed. The populations are living. In Buea, there is a mayor. In Buea, there is a paramount chief. In Buea, there are state authorities, the governor, the subdivision. In Buea, there are political authorities. Somehow, we shouldn't forget that for any initiative politically to succeed, it has to be sensitive to a certain number of things. Once that initiative or that plan does not show sensitivity to a certain number of objective conditions, real conditions on the ground, the tendency is that no matter how good that initiative is not likely to work. And to make it worse, that initiative assumed that the others will be okay, but as you know, the others have said no.
Okay,
the others have said no to that
initiative. I wanted to ask you a question, but I would want the two of them to react to what you have said. Then I'll ask them my own question.
Well, I think that I'm really surprised because the issue of whether or not to hold a conference in Buea, people have decided to philosophize about it instead of tackling the real issues at stake. We are in a real crisis situation. And in this crisis situation, every son and daughter of this country should be able to support the initiative that should bring peace. And I think the huge cardinal, huge in every sense of the word, huge in physique, in mentality, in intelligentsia, in religiosity, that his things that with other religious co-religionists they can be able to summon a conference. And he insists that it is a proposal where all the various schools of thought amongst Anglophones should come together and talk out their differences so as to have a common position. I think it is an initiative that any single Cameroonian who wants this country to move forward in concord and harmony should be able to support.
Okay.
I mean, to be saying that the conditions have not... There is no condition which is above human life. There is no condition. We should be... I mean, we don't want to juggle with conditions and keep on wasting lives in the field.
Okay. Tewi?
Yes, permit me to react to what the learned professor and an experienced politician said. I would want to say here that him like me, I've listened to him call for dialogue, and all of us were applauded. But the problem people wanted was what form of dialogue. I think with this initiative, at least we are moving now from dialogue as a rhetoric to reality. Reality in the sense that at least we have a time that has been proposed.
A time, a place, and who is supposed to take part.
So those are some of the questions that can lend merit or credit to this initiative, that it is concrete proposal. The second reaction is the timing. What time is good time? Crisis situations need crisis solutions and approaches. We should stop philosophizing. Timing. Maybe it could contribute. We cannot speculate as at now that it is not good timing. It depends on who is looking at it and whose interest is at stake. Because are we sure, Professor, that the elections you are talking about would have taken place under conducive circumstances in the regions you are talking about? That is the question I ask myself. Okay. Wouldn't it be an initiative as to more or less appease or bring the situation, I cannot say under normality, but more or less acceptable for those elections to take place? Thirdly, talking about conditionalities, I read the communique of the cardinal and the other religious. In no way do they put preconditions. If I may quote, they say, we pray, and I want to lay emphasis, on the word we pray, the government of Cameroon to create the enabling environment by... No, but they are not giving an injunction. I think that we should read.
I'll come back to you.
We should be able to read in between the lines. We are not doing any service to our country by questioning, first of all, by delving into a judgment of intentions. I think it's a very slippery ground to try to judge somebody on intentions. Yeah, secondly,
I'll come to you, Prof.
Secondly, I think that...
Thirdly, so the third point.
Thirdly, okay. Well, it may count. Thirdly, our head of state declared at the rostrum of the United Nations, we are beggars of peace. Beggars of peace don't give conditionalities. Beggars of peace, the only condition is peace. Come on, Joe. Come to think of it, look at how you and me come from that point. Even Prof, can you go home easily now?
No, of course.
No, but who is more comfortable in such a situation? Who would not support any initiative without prejudging people? Intentions, without taking it out, without politicizing it.
Okay.
This situation should not, to me, be politicized.
I mean, we're quite comfortable with the concerns of our colleagues.
Yes.
But what is here is that the idea of an initiative as a concept, we have nobody. We have no problem about it.
The way you put it,
and Cardinal,
excuse me,
not huge. Is not bigger than the state.
No
one in a state is bigger than the state except God. And once you know that you have a good thing such as that, you should make sure that the state...
From the argument you've developed,
yes,
should that initiative be suspended?
No, it's a good initiative. What it should do is that initiative should be put within a real, workable, doable framework. That is to say, how? That's a very good question. How do you do it? That is to say, make sure that the state is part and parcel or is along with you, and that you work with the state. It doesn't look like a fait accompli for the state. That is the how. Second how is that make sure that before you choose the location, you should recognize that on that location there are political leaders, there are municipal leaders,
are you saying
there are traditional leaders, and you should make sure that on the other side, because
you did develop those ideas earlier on, but the point is, it's the divisional officer for Boya that issues the authorization.
Yes.
So yes. We don't know whether one has been addressed or one will be addressed, and so on and so.
You just have to go along with the state.
Yes.
The divisional officer is a representative of the state.
So you want him to write to the President of the Republic?
No. Obviously, the Cardinal is. I mean, we all have all respect for him. He knows what the state is. The Cardinal is not a state function, and the cardinalship vis-a-vis the state. The state is always supreme and superior.
Of course,
because the cardinal is.
We do understand. Yes. Now, the point is, what you're developing. Would you say that at this point in time, he shouldn't organize the meeting at the end of the month, or he shouldn't go ahead with the initiative? Or what's your opinion? If
the objective conditions are not met, obviously there is no chance that it can succeed.
Okay.
Because you cannot force. I mean, no matter how good you are, you cannot force on, especially when it's political grounds. This is a dangerous effort.
Okay.
Joe,
Prince?
I'll be forced to be a little bit hard on the professor.
Feel free. We are used to.
And I'll be forced to be very hard on the thing.
No, discuss ideas, not persons. Talk on
hard
the
on his ideas or the things he's saying right now.
Okay.
Because, you know, I will say vehemently that with regards to this Anglophone crisis, it is evident to all Cameroonians of good faith that the state has failed to take over its responsibility as the guarantor of peace. Because, as we speak, there are killings going on, and the head of state has not mentioned a word.
No, when you say that,
Excuse me, Joe.
Yes.
Excuse me, Joe.
If you say that, I disagree.
I must have finished, because if you disagree with me when I'm not finished, you don't even know what I want to say.
No, you've said already. You've said that the state has failed. But when you look at
yes,
because as we speak, citizens of this country are being killed every day.
But the military is being killed as well.
Excuse me, I say citizens. Military are citizens.
Now,
in a war,
let me put it this way to you before you come back to your idea.
Yes.
When you say the state has failed, when the state addressed the initial problems exposed in this in the ongoing crisis. How would you judge the very fact that those who raised the concerns, the teachers and the lawyers, their concerns have been addressed, and they are in the process? Others that were supposed to be met with time are in the pipeline and going.
So why did the state arrest those teachers and lawyers when their concerns have been addressed? Why did the state arrest them and put them in jail? See, those are things that we must be very honest about it, because one of the things that will solve this Anglophone problem or solve the problems of our country is when we become honest and truthful to the realities on ground. One of the things I also want to say is this: we cannot sit here and begin to become so judgmental over the initiative of religious leaders, because religious leaders or religious institutions are part of the state. And they play a role to be able to make sure that the state is balanced.
But they are not the state.
So they are not the state. I don't refuse. But the fact is that for over 2 years now, the state is only carrying out very drastic measures to be able to, for example, most of the people, like for example, there is a village like Balangi. No, I'm talking to you about Likomba right now.
You are talking about citizens,
civilians are fleeing away from their homes. Yes. What is the role of the state to make sure that those civilians stay in their homes? The state has failed because the citizens cannot be stable in their homes or in their environment.
Do you want the military to get into Balangi and kill indiscriminately because they want to bring peace?
If the state, as Professor is claiming, if the state is the guarantor of peace, what makes it difficult for the state, with all the machineries it has, not to be able to settle this problem for more than 2 years now?
You know why we have to disagree?
Why?
Yes. We have to disagree with him that the state has failed, because if the state had failed, the lawyers and the teachers would still be on strike. But it's because the state has succeeded.
They are in jail.
No.
They are in jail.
The lawyers and teachers in Cameroon
too much of a state
are in strike and they are functioning. Secondly, if the state, as he claims, had failed, he himself will not be here today.
Exactly.
It is thanks to the success of the state that you and I are here today, and we are talking about this. Exactly. It shows that the state is functioning and that the state has succeeded.
There is insecurity.
Look, we should not.
Insecurity might be there.
Let's get emotions out of this.
Okay.
Cardinal Tumi's idea, his initiative, his person, we don't doubt it. In concept, it is good. But no idea in itself is good just because it's an idea. For an idea to be good, it has to be doable, workable on the ground. How do you ground an idea which has come from you? And the fact that it has come from you, even if you're a cardinal, or it's not an idea from God. It is an idea from a citizen of Cameroon who is a cardinal and we respect, and who wants that there should be peace. The state cannot disagree with that, because the state wants peace. The head of state has said, as Mr. Dewelambi said earlier, that we are all beggars of peace. We all want peace. But for that peace to be a reality, we have to ground it.
Now,
let everybody understand, and we cannot make the state look like the state, according to him, so it doesn't matter, or the state has failed. The state cannot fail. If the state fails, we will not be here.
Exactly. Okay. Please, before you come in, let's have Elvis. Then you'll speak after that. We're running out of time.
Yes, Joe, we have had a quite heated debate also on social media, just like this on the set here, on the different topics, beginning with football. Let's begin with Asa, a man who says, I see no great improvement after the appointment of the two coaches, as you can't feed your chick on the day of sale. So we pray for better days, and now we keep our fingers crossed. And Mary Chilasti about football says it's really interesting for Cameroonian football this time. And I think the two, no matter the fact that they are European with black skin, they will fight for their origin and they will help Cameroon to be at the top. But corruption should not influence them. While on the second subject concerning decentralization,
just one from there.
Yeah, just one. Ta Crtv is saying that why is the president giving a new specification on decentralization 22 years after? And Ngole Chi Copy says coaches in Cameroon should be given a chance to continue, a second chance. While on the topic we just had now, Rene Akumbo says the cardinal will succeed given given where everybody has failed, if and only if he received the necessary support from the government, and it is the starting point of the end to the conflict. Meanwhile, Ayuk Erin says the servants of God will succeed in their mission to bring peace to the country, Prince Dennis Fonjo said, let the government give him the benefit of doubt and people should not criticize when they are not proposing alternative solutions. And we'll conclude with Kemki Christian, who says the Minister of Communication said the state welcomes any effort to solve the problem, though the mayor of Boya said it will not hold in his municipality, and there is no decree so far authorizing the conference to hold.
Okay. Can we go a little bit fast? We have just 2-3 minutes.
I think what I wanted to say is that the way my able professor is speaking is as though the cardinal did not respect state institutions. That is why he tabled a letter to that effect to the highest authority to give room to create an atmosphere where the Anglophones could come together and talk what is really bedeviling the country. And of course, what I realize is that we want to inject a lot of politics about the conference, because politicians always think that the solution for this problem must only come through their political lenses, the SDF, the CPDM, all the political parties. And we have said that this problem is above political parties. It is high time we give the Cardinal total support. After all, at his age, he has nothing to campaign for. He doesn't want to become a politician. He doesn't want to be a minister. He's said it very clearly. And as a religious personality, I think instead of doing the philosophy of whether the conference is important or not, the duo who is in Boya is answerable to the head of state. And if he wrote to the highest authority, it's incumbent that if the state genuinely wanted to resolve this crisis, I think they're going to provide all
the enabling
environment to give this conference work.
Joe, I get very a little disturbed when I hear some utterances, and it comes to confirm what I had earlier said, that some unscrupulous opportunists on either side of the aisle are taking advantage of this situation in the southwest and the northwest regions of our country to make political and financial capital out of it. Otherwise, I don't see why anybody should stand on the way of any initiative for peace. Because, Joe...
The Minister of Communication said government welcomes all initiatives.
So what I'm saying is that somebody should start by opposing it. It simply means that these are simple opportunists who are making a fortune out of people's misfortune.
Okay.
Nobody is against it.
Prince and Prof will end.
Yeah, I want to say that whether some Anglophones subscribe and support this conference or not, I want to say that they are Francophones, they are people who are well placed, who are mobilizing to give their endorsement to this conference.
Okay.
And this conference will solve the problem that the Anglophones are going through.
Okay.
It's a step.
Yes, Prof.
Indeed, as the Minister of Communication said, we're all for those who are making a contribution through initiatives and plans to bring about peace. So no, we are not against the initiative of or the proposal of the Cardinal. All that we are saying is that for it to work, ground it. In other words, make sure that you are sensitive to the timing, you are sensitive to the state, you are sensitive to those who on the ground have to consume it. That's all.
Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm sure our time is up.
We all want peace.
We will certainly be coming. It's a running story, and this problem has been on for quite some time. Thank you so much for coming. Stay with CRTV if you can. We have Tam Weekend coming up shortly after this program.
You cannot be talking about timing.